My name is Brittany Jensen. I'm a engineering specialist out of Local 89, and I will be your host today. Um, I first got started with Teamsters back in November of 2022 when I reached out to our local and sat down with our organizers, David Thornsberry and Brian Trafford, to organize the specialists and admins at LCH. Shortly after, I was introduced to TDU through my business agent. uh, he gave me resources and materials, and then I attended my first conference back in November of 2024, and have been an active member ever since. Um, that's also about when I joined TDU and became an active member. Um, just last week, we had a Midwest conference that was actually put together by members of TDU with the help of some of the staffing. We had over 150 people attend across Kentucky, Indiana, Louisville. I'm sorry, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois. Um, and it's the type of event similar to the one we're putting on today, where it's meant to empower members, so you can go back to your shops and be more prepared. So hopefully, with everything you guys received today, will show you why I became a TDU member, and hopefully you will too. So on today's agenda, where does union power come from? Then next we're going to lead into a panel of speakers. I believe we have 4 of them today. And then we're going to end with a Q&A.
Great. Thanks so much, Brittany. Um, my name is Willem Morris. I'm going to be the next speaker. I'm one of the organizers for TDU. Thanks everyone for introducing yourself at the chat. The way that we run the Q&A on these webinars is that there's going to be a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or on the right of your screen if you're on your phone. And the way we track questions is, instead of putting questions in the chat, put them in the Q&A so that we can keep track of everything. And we're going to get to the Q&As at the end. Towards the end, when we get to the discussion for the Q&A, you're going to click your raise hand function in order to raise your hand. And then we will get to the Q&As at the end at this point. But before we get into anything else, I'm going to talk a little bit about the content of this webinar, which is bringing the union to the members. So to get started with, we're going to have a poll that's going to pop up on your screen that's going to say, why do you think that more members don't attend union meetings at the hall? There's an option: they're busy with family, the union hall is too far, they're working during the meeting, or actually everything is fine at work. We're going to take about 30 seconds to answer this question. All right, we got a few hundred responses there. I don't know if the results show up on everyone else's screen, but by far the top choice is that they're busy with something else: family, personal obligations for the meeting. There was a few people that said they are working during the meeting, but there were only 2 out of a few hundred people who said people don't show up because everything is fine at work. I think that's a pretty common theme, and I'm almost never ever find someone in the Teamsters who I talk to who say, I have no problems. My boss treats me perfectly. My work conditions are perfectly. My pay is exactly what I want it to be. And so I think that this is pretty important to remember, because as an organizer, I travel all across the country and I talk to members. And something that I'll hear sometimes is, yeah, no one out here actually cares. No one shows up to the union meetings. No one really gets involved. And the thing that I found is that it's almost never the case that people don't care. People just are not actually sure, or they're not haven't been engaged to the point where they see the union meetings as something that's empowering and educating to them, and they don't understand yet how the union is going to give them the resources in these meetings to actually benefit them in their day-to-day lives on the job site. So what this call is about today, bringing the union to the members, is that we want to think about how to meet members where they're at, actually at the workplace, and talk about how we can engage these people from the starting place of being unengaged and to give them skills and confidence to become more engaged. We're going to go to the next slide, and it's going to talk a little bit about how to get started with union power. So at TDU, the difference in TDU is that our philosophy is that a strong union doesn't actually start at the union hall or with the agents. This is obviously an important part of the union, but a strong union starts with engaged and empowered rank and file members. And the biggest examples or the biggest ways that I can see that a shop is engaged and empowered is that the members know what's going on, the members know their rights, the members are educated and informed on their contract, and they feel confident enforcing the contract and pushing back against management. They know that their coworkers are going to have their backs and they can take action together. And what you'll find is that in these shops that have this type of organization, where you have people who start fighting back and people start seeing the union make a big difference in their life, these are the shops that are going to become more engaged, and you're going to have people showing up more often at the union meetings as well. We can build a strong union by starting at the workplaces, holding parking lot meetings, shift meetings, having group chats, Facebook pages, solidarity events, rallies, social events outside of work, and starting really small and actually starting where we're at so that we can build union power from the bottom up. I want every person on this webinar today to leave thinking that there's something small that they can do to engage their coworkers to build power on the shop floor. At TDU, the way we think about this is a bullseye. If you've ever been to one of our organizing workshops, you've seen this bullseye, but if not, I'll take just a second to explain it. We think about workplaces like the circular bullseye, with the biggest portion of a workplace are maybe a little bit disengaged members. I think everyone here can relate to this. There might be a few core people on the shop floor who are the leaders and activists, who are the ones showing up to TD webinars on Sundays, and the ones who are showing up to the local union meetings at the hall. And then from there are going to be some activists who maybe will show up from time to time. They'll file grievances. There'll be some soft supporters, and there's a lot of people on the outer rings who are disengaged. This can be kind of discouraging, but it's also where pretty much everyone else is at. And we want to use the structure of the workplace to get started with our organization. We don't want you to be only thinking about yourself and the disengaged members. We want to be thinking about the people close to you who are other activists and supporters at your shop, who can help you bring the other people in and get them engaged. For if you're going to have a social event, or if you're going to have a parking lot meeting or a shift meeting or anything else like a Facebook chat or a group chat, we're going to want to include the activists and supporters of the union who might not be there at the union meetings with you, but have shown interest and are filing grievances, to have help them reach out to other supporters and disengaged members and try to build this kind of ring so that you have more supporters, more activists, and more core leaders in the union to kind of bring everyone to the center of the bullseye. Thanks for listening to my introduction about organizing. But the point of this webinar is to hear from members themselves about how people are organizing on their own shop floors. So we're going to have a panel today with some rank and file members across TDU, with TDU organizer Jake Streich-Kest, Chuck Bryan from Local 710, Tyler Kondo from Local 455, and John Gacy from Local 509. I'm going to pass it to Jake, and he'll take it from there.
Sure. Thanks, Willem. And yeah, we're going to get right into the panel. And so the first speaker we're going to talk to is John Gacy from Local 509. So John, why don't you first start off, sort of introduce yourself, sort of where you work, and yeah, talk a little bit about how you got started with parking lot meetings.
Thank you, Jake. My name is John Gacy. I'm a package car driver in Charleston, South Carolina, Local 509, the almighty Local 509. I'm excited to be here with you guys today. So for me, a couple years ago, I joined TDU and I began to receive a wealth of education and knowledge. And it was important to me that I share that information with my other siblings, members in my barn. I wanted a way to get everyone on the same page. Also, I wanted to build uh, energy, build solidarity, get feedback, so on and so forth. So what I did, I learned quickly that it can be a problem if you task yourself with conducting one-on-one meetings with everyone. So a parking lot meeting is a great solution. Uh, so planning and preparation is the key. I formed a small group, my bullseye, as Willem mentioned earlier, by reaching out to my stronger Teamster siblings in the building to help me carry out meetings and perform other tasks. I got a great group. Quick shout out, Siblings of Solidarity, SOS. I love you. They help me decide on topics for our meetings, pinpoint dates, remind fellow siblings of times and upcoming meetings, and also keep meetings on tracks. If you're going to implement parking lot meetings, it's important to share tasks to lighten the load. We send out 3 messages via text messages. We have a WhatsApp group, and we also spread information through basic word of mouth. So typically, our meetings are 15 to 20 minutes prior to start time. At the meetings, we share important information from other buildings, information from the local hot button issues with middle management, and we gather feedback from the members. These meetings are good for showing solidarity internally and externally. Internally, because we're all standing as one, sharing information, and we feel strong and engaged. Externally, because we're also visible to middle management and they see that we're strong and engaged. One other show of solidarity, when we close the meetings, we always do a 3-2-1 Teamsters as loud as we can at the top of our voice. It's a great way and it's a great feeling when you're walking together to your PCM. And if you're not doing parking lot meetings, I highly recommend that you start.
Thanks, John. One follow-up question I have is maybe you could go a little more into detail about just like the logistics of how you plan a meeting, like kind of what day of the week you get message out, like when you do the meetings and sort of where you do the meetings and how you get set up for them.
Okay, so we're a little different. Our building is set up where we have area where we can do meetings, and we decided one day that we really wanted management to know that we were doing a meeting, so we actually do our parking lot meetings on the inside of the building. We also what we do is I'll send out a message typically the Friday prior to the meeting, and we usually schedule them on a Wednesday or Thursday. So I'll send a message on Fridays, then we send out another message on Monday. Then one of my fellow shop steward, shout out to Russell Sires, he'll yell union meeting at the end of the PCM the day of. So coupled with members already speaking about it because they're getting the text messages and in the WhatsApp group. So we usually get a pretty high turnout. And I always say that if you're going to do them outside, which typically most guys do it outside, always check the weather. That's a big factor. If you don't have a covered area, you know, like I said, preparation is key. But it's a lot of conjunction of myself, my group, the members, everybody, just full communication and just spreading that information to get that high turnout every time.
Great. And have you seen like a change in your coworkers or, how empowered people feel after doing these meetings?
Absolutely, Jake. I see that it starts discussions outside of the meeting. So, I'll get phone calls or other guys the next morning we'll talk about it, but we see that they're more engaged, more empowered. I always say knowledge is the key. So when you have that knowledge, it's harder for management to screw with you and anyone to screw with you. So I definitely have seen a major difference since we started these union meetings and parking lot meetings.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. So
Thank
now we're going
you.
to go on to our next speaker, who's from, sort of a very different situation. We're having in-person meetings isn't really possible. So I'm going to call up Chuck Bryan from Local 710. And Chuck, why don't you first just introduce yourself, sort of where you work and how you guys got started.
Yeah, so my name's Chuck Bryan. I'm a feeder driver at UPS Catch in Chicago. And I happen to be a a steward as well as a sleeper driver in the sleeper network. So what we were trying to find a way during the contract campaign at UPS to reach out and educate and have conversations with with our members. And there was a lot of the conversations that we were having at TDU, and the things that were being encouraged were things like John was bringing up, parking lot meetings or meeting at a cafe or these things that were kind of geared towards people that came to work every day in the same work area. And that didn't really work for sleeper drivers, because we had groups of teams leaving on every day of the week and maybe not coming back at the same time. And so we wanted to figure out a way to reach out and bring these conversations to our drivers. So our CHSP department, our safety department, and the local management had been using Telegram app to get schedules out and get safety information and PCM information out to drivers. So we thought, well, everybody's already got Telegram, so we don't have to get someone to download this app in order to come talk to us. They already have it. How can we use that app to kind of reach out to drivers who are out on the road who can't meet us in person? So during the contract campaign, we started opening up conference calls every night. We would go article by article by article, and we would go through the contract and have conversations and educate members on the language of the contract and answer questions. And then after the contract campaign, we continued to have calls every week. So we have calls every Wednesday night. We have a call Thursday afternoon to try to make it available for different schedules. And so we discuss what's going on. As a steward, obviously, I have interaction with the company, any discipline that whatever they're playing around with at UPS. Anybody at UPS knows it's a revolving door of things that they kind of target. So we try to keep members informed of what's going on, what the company's, kind of targeting, making sure our people are prepared and know how to know what their rights are, know what the company can and can't do, and keep them involved in what's going on a day to week to week basis at least. So had a lot of success with the calls continuing to grow and grow. And I think it's helped with a lot of people being able to understand their contract, that be active, and when you're protecting yourself and you're educated, that obviously extends out to your brothers and sisters on the board as well. So it's been a big help for our workforce, for our unit on sleeper.
Yeah, Chuck, talk a little bit about like the first call you had and sort of how many people were on, and how you kind of used that as a springboard to grow.
Yeah, so it's funny, the first call we had was actually on WhatsApp, and we had Telegram, and we kind of, I shortened the story to tell you why we're on Telegram, but we kind of had to come to that realization of people didn't have WhatsApp. So you had to get somebody to download WhatsApp. And we started with a very small core of people who were interested in having conversations about the contract. So that first call was like 7 people. And, the next call was 10 or 11 people. But we were fighting against this, this ability to get people to download an app that they didn't have in order to have a conversation with us, that they weren't sure if they wanted to do this or talk about any of this stuff, because they'd never been involved before, a lot of people. So you know, we kind of transitioned from the WhatsApp app, and we were kind of forced to do that because they limit your calls to like 60 people. You know, Telegram, you can have as many people as you want. So it kind of forced our hand to move as well. But we realized that once we moved to a platform where everybody already had that platform, it was much easier to organize people and bring them in. And it's funny because even when, you know, let's say at midnight around the time of our call, you know, management calls me as a steward and I'm dealing with some, you know, discipline thing and representing a member, and I can't be there at midnight. I'll show up to this call that's already been started without me, and there's 50, 60 people on the call, you know? So now that we've established it and we've been consistent and everybody knows we're going to be there, it's they show up, they look forward to it, and they know they're going to get good information. They know that if they have any questions, those questions are going to be asked, or if we don't have an answer to those questions, that we're going to find out and we're going to get you good information. And so you know, it's a place for everybody, regardless of where they're on the board. It could be, you know, a bid driver on Browns, or it could be someone on a call board not working and wondering how to get more work, right? There's a lot of different situations people can be in, and to have all of those people in one place and provide support is a pretty powerful thing for building a community at your barn or at your hub. Bringing people together is going to help when we go to do contract campaigns or elections or whatever you're trying to accomplish at your location.
Yeah. And talk a little bit just about, you know, you don't have a call by just calling every single person yourself. Talk a little bit how you sort of have tasked, you know, other kind of activists in Catch to help build these and, you know, grow it from 7 people to 70 people plus.
Sure. So, you know, a different hubs are going to have different people. You have small hubs, you have large hubs. At Catch, there's over 1,100 people on our feeder board. You know, over 600 of those people are out in a sleeper truck. So there's people, even for me as a steward, that I have talked to. Maybe I talk to them regularly. I've never met them in person because they're on a different schedule than me. You know, maybe it's just never lined up where we meet each other. A lot of times I recognize people not by the way that they look, but by the way that they sound, you know, because I talk to them often enough, but I've never actually seen them in person because we're not together. But as you build, you know, unionism really is about building relationships. It's about having an understanding that we're a part of community and we're all responsible for one another. Sure, we want to file grievances and we want to enforce pay claims and we want to do all of these things. And initially members do that to get their money that they're owed, right? That the company owes them. But they're also upholding the contract for their brother and sister on the board. Okay, you're telling the company, you will not violate me on this pay claim, or you won't break this rule or this procedure in the contract. And by standing up for yourself, you stand up for everybody else. And so a lot of what we talk about on the calls is your responsibility as a Teamster. You'll hear a lot of members talk about the Teamsters in a way that's, well, the union's supposed to do this, the union's supposed to do that, I'm supposed to get this benefit, right, because of the union. But they don't understand that they're the union, that the leadership within a union is supposed to follow the directions of the members. And if the members aren't educated and engaged and don't know what's going on, there is no direction for your union. You can't hold leadership accountable when you don't know what they're supposed to be doing and what direction you want them to go. So you know, with that in mind, when we started building the calls, I made the point that there's 1,150 people. I don't have enough time in the day to organize all of those people individually. I don't have everybody's phone number. I don't know everyone. And so we started talking about that responsibility and giving homework, saying, hey, you enjoyed this call, you got something out of it. Next week, bring a friend, bring someone who works here that came from wherever you came from and came to this hub, bring them in and let's include them in this group. And just every week, hey, make sure you're bringing somebody that's not been included, because we want to make sure that they have a source to get the answers that they need to their questions. And, you know, over time, we've doubled and doubled and doubled, and it just keeps growing, even though it's been 2.5 years since we started the contract campaigns, and we're still growing. That hasn't plateaued out. That hasn't changed. We went from, I think in our chat group now, we started with 7 or 8 people in that chat group, and we're over 600 people in that chat, 640 some people. So we've got over half of our seniority board is in this group, has access to this group. And, you know, you just keep doing what you need to do to get in touch with people, and they will eventually, something will come up in their work life where the company comes after them for something, and they will seek out that information. And if you're out there giving that information, they're going to find you, or you're going to find them out of necessity.
Thanks, Chuck. And I just want to highlight, something you said around, you should never be afraid to task other people to do things. When we think back to the bullseye Willem explained, the way that you get more people to think of themselves as, kind of core organizers or union activists is asking them to do something. If nobody asks you to be involved in the union and get your coworkers involved, you're not going to do it. So that's a just helpful story of the way you grow and the way you involve more members is by asking other coworkers to involve their coworkers. So we're going to move now to our next panelist. Before we do, just a reminder, if you've got questions for the panelists, you can put them in the Q&A button at the bottom. After Tyler speaks, we're going to open it up for other people to share stories and jump in and ask questions. So after Tyler speaks, if you want to raise your hand and kind of share a way that you bring the union to the members or have a question for one of the panelists, we're going to open that up to do that. But now, let's bring up Tyler from Local 455. And yeah, Tyler, why don't you introduce yourself and where you work, and talk a little bit about how you've been bringing the union to the members in a way that's kind of different from the other two speakers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jake. My name is Tyler Kondo. I'm a package car driver in Aurora Building, Denver, Colorado. I'm not even top scale yet. I've only been full-time for about 3 years. And there's several hundred people on this call today, and I'm sure there's a ton of you out there thinking to yourself, well, wow, wouldn't it be so nice if I had John or Chuck at my shop floor as a steward doing what they're doing. And most of you have probably found that there's very little activity on your shop floor. It's a lot easier said than done to put together a parking lot meeting, to put together a group chat or a group call. So one of the big issues that we were having on my shop floor is our stewards are not doing an onboarding process for new hires. And I recognize that very quickly. I personally think it's a very dangerous situation because the only contact that these new hires are having is with management instead of their union stewards. So I recognized the problem, and initially I wanted to go down a similar path of what we were just talking about of let's all get together on a group call, on a Zoom call, Let's go to a library and read the contract. And wouldn't you know it, crickets. Most people, just like the poll pointed out at the beginning of this call, most people aren't interested in going to a general membership meeting or leaving their family on a Sunday to go sit quietly in a library and read a union contract. So I quickly realized that I needed to take a different approach, and I started asking some of the younger drivers if they would be interested in going to the bar, a local bar, and watching sports instead. I reached out to everyone of the younger drivers. I made a flyer. I texted people. I made face-to-face contact to ask and double verify that they were going to be there the next day. And I made a goal to myself that I wasn't going to go and talk about the union the entire time. I wasn't going to go and talk about work the entire time. I wanted to find out what their kids' names were. I wanted to find out where they were from, why they even started working at UPS in the first place, where they may have worked beforehand. And what I found was the first time only about 3 people showed up. But as soon as they sat down, all they could talk about was questions about work and questions about the union. What is a steward? What guarantees us our rights? Why does UPS even listen to the union? And it was a great opportunity to start to have those conversations. And in practice, the first meeting, only 3 people started, but on Monday morning, everyone that attended went around to our coworkers and started talking about how much fun they had at the bar with Condo this weekend. And wouldn't you know it, we do these meetings once a month. And wouldn't you know it, nowadays, everyone asks me at least once a week, hey, when's the next bar meetup? When's the next bar meetup? But you don't have to be a bar hopper to pull any of this off. We've gone bowling. There are sporting events that you can go to. Maybe it might be expensive to go to a professional league, but maybe there's a minor league that you can look up in your town. Just something cheap and fun, not work related, to go and blow some steam off. And I think most of you will be really amazed at how many people want to be active in their union. They just don't know how to do it. And I have found that getting in a very this is a bad word, unprofessional setting is actually been a very effective way to loosen the floodgates and have people get more involved.
Yeah, and what's been like the impact of people who come to those meetings? Like, how have they, when they go back to the shop floor, like what's kind of changed for them after getting together with their coworkers outside of work?
Absolutely. So something that's really funny is we were so successful at these bar meetups that these UPS drivers were talking to their boss about it too. And our bosses were going around saying, don't meet up with Tyler. Don't go to the bar. He's going to fill your head with a bunch of lies, and you'd be much better off just coming in early, working off the clock, and working through your lunch to get your work done. So initially there was a lot of hesitation. A lot of people didn't want to associate with the group that was going out. They didn't want to get caught hanging out with the antagonists on the shop floor. And slowly but surely, with these new hires coming on, they have started to question that narrative. A lot of these new hires are starting to look at the world differently, right? This is the whole reason that I got this job at UPS, was because it has great benefits, and every time I try to use one of my benefits, my boss flips out on me. So slowly but surely, we started seeing young drivers slowly taking more time off, not coming in on their day off, not working off the clock, taking their 3 monthly 8-hour requests on our shop floor so that they can get off at a decent time. And as these younger drivers have started to implement their rights on the shop floor, the older drivers have taken notice. A lot of these older drivers have given up on this fight from years of inactivity. And now that they see a bunch of young guns doing it, whether they like it or not, I found that the people that aren't showing up to these social events are more motivated to enforce their contract.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you, Tyler. Something I want to highlight from just what everyone said on the panel, a few things is one, Willem said it earlier, but the importance of meeting members where they are and bringing the union to them. So whether it's John sort of doing something right in the building where members can see, and it's kind of like, well, when you're coming into work and you're doing a parking lot meeting, it's really easy for members to join because they have to walk right by it. Or Chuck, using Telegram because that's what everyone's using already, and doing calls, at midnight because that's when people are on the road and want to talk. Or Tyler, doing social events because that's what people are ready for. And actually, like sometimes what people want is to, just blow off steam with their coworkers and, complain about work and learn what they can do. And in all these settings, it kind of led to members feeling more empowered, and not just like more educated and empowered, but also feeling like they had coworkers who would have their back and work with them and also were interested. So just the act of bringing a group together, whether it's, in person, on a conference call, or at a bar, just builds that solidarity. So that we're going to wrap up the panel now. We've got a lot of people in this call who I know also bring the union to members. So in a minute, we're going to kind of open it up for other people to speak and share. And I know there's a lot of knowledge on this call, and we've got over 300 people on this call. So I think there's a lot of people who might want to share. But, before people get off, and we'll keep the Q&A open for about 20 minutes. When this is over, you're going to get a form that to give feedback and get involved. Please fill this out. If you want a TDU organizer to contact you, help you get a group chat or a parking lot meeting or some other way to bring the unions to the members set up, or a workshop set up. And join TDU. All the speakers you've heard here are TDU members. TDU is an organization, made up of rank and file members just like you all. And it takes all of us joining TDU to build a strong, powerful organization to take on, the big companies that we all work for. So with that, we're going to open up the Q&A. And you see here, you get a free t-shirt or hoodie if you join TDU. We're going to open up the Q&A. So if you see at the bottom, you can raise your hand if you'd like to speak, or you can type in the chat and we'll try to address your question. But we'll start with people who have raised their hand. I see Jason's hand up, so I'm going to allow you to speak now, Jason.
Can you hear me, Jake?
Yep.
All right. I don't know why my video is not popping up unless you guys can see it and I can't.
No worries though. Go ahead.
All right. So my name is Jason Casado. I am a RPCD out of local 804 in the Farmerville building in Suffolk. I wanted to talk to you guys about Discord, mainly because, in a world right now where I've been working at UPS for 5 years, and I've seen technology change from dyads to label tracking and everything like that. They're really advancing their technology. So I think the way we have to keep up is a platform called Discord. And I really want to speak also for Henry Toza, who's not here right now, but I'm going to kind of speak on behalf of him. He's my steward in my building, and he works super hard on our Discord server. What it is, it's basically a communication platform that was originally created for, believe it or not, gamers back in 2015. I've been using it since 2016. It's a way to access information as far as, contract violations, different articles. You can even create video calls or just voice chat, different chat rooms as far as, schedule changes, start times. It's definitely an application that's not easy to use at first, but it's something that I think I want to teach people and help them get more engaged with. I don't want to babble too much, but I kind of have bullet points of why we should start using it. There's different, yeah, exactly, absolutely right. Gamers in the world unite. it's funny because when I first got the app back in the day, you only had one option. It was to name a gaming server. And now when you download Discord, you'll see there's options for creating it for a community or a business. And that just shows you how much it's evolved since. So take advantage of this. I want to explain something that it's a quote that I hear all the time. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Even though we have these tools like Discord, where you can talk to people from your local to your building to your center to the district and to the whole IBT in general, you can't necessarily say that that's going to fix anything. The people still have to engage. The members still have to put in the work as far as, you know, talking, educating. I have a shop steward named Dave, Dave Carew, and he's been saying since day one to me is that knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power, knowledge is power, knowledge is power. I see now why knowledge is power. You know, by having Henry create this Discord for our center specifically, it's made me have more knowledge about my own rights. And when I have more knowledge about my own rights, I also help people who are working next to me with their rights. And a quick example of that experience that I had recently is that there was a driver who had got bitten by a dog on a Saturday. And a Saturday is more for a skeleton crew for our building where there's not, you know, much stewards around or management around. But that day that we had a center manager there, I witnessed the driver about to walk into the office without a steward. I'm not a steward, but I know enough rights where I could have made sure, one, he either didn't go in the office, or two, if he did go in the office, I would go in there with him to make sure he wasn't going to get his, you know, contractual rights violated. So I went in the office and it was a very fast meeting. I asked the manager if I could sit in. He did. Basically just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to ask the driver about any kind of procedures, because that's where, you know, a driver can get in trouble. And that all came down from me knowing my rights, right? I knew that the minute a question came up about, hey, you know, did you not, you know, ring the bell, you know, ring the gate or shake the gate, call it UPS, I would have shut down the meeting because I'm not a steward, right? I can't represent him like that, which would have helped him in the long run. So what I mean is that I would have never gotten this knowledge as a driver, a 5-year driver, if it wasn't for Discord. And I want to give full credit to that, to this application, because the things that you can do with it are things that you can't do with WhatsApp, text message, even Zoom, because it's about organization. It's about every channel being a different topic. You know, you can have your rant channels where people can blow off steam and talk about sports, this, that. But then when it comes down to the seriousness of it, you have channels where you can track your grievances. You have channels where, you know, you can keep track of, you know, certain violations, or maybe, you know, a funny one is maybe people to look out for as far as like management. You know, you shouldn't trust any management, but, you know, keeping track of cars, they follow us every day out there. You know, it's things like that that you need to have as power as members, that I noticed in 5 years. That's going to keep you having a happy career here. And unfortunately, someone mentioned before, I think it was the last speaker on the panel said, the younger members start doing things as far as, you know, getting involved with the contract negotiations and, you know, just being more involved in knowing their rights. And the older generation Teamsters who are still there, you know, the 20+ years, they see it, and it is right. They do get more involved. I've seen it. You know, I've had people come up to me that I've never met before in my building, shake my hand and say, hey, you know, good job, you know, keep doing what you're doing. I've never met them before, but they see what I'm doing, and it's got to mean something. So recently I've been, you know, I'm on the layoff list. I'm going to end it on this. I'm on the layoff list right now, and I've been really using this contract to fight for my right as a member while being on this layoff list. And I can tell you that it makes a difference. You know, I get targeted now. They know when I walk around the building because they know I call it when supervisors are working. And that's only because I know my rights. Everybody has the same rights I have. Everybody needs to get involved. I will say this so that more people can talk. I know we have the Q&A open. I have no problem with my phone number being out there. And I think Discord is more of something that's better to learn on a one-on-one basis. If you want to put my phone number out there, Jake, on the Q&A, if somebody asks, hey, can I have Jason's phone number so you can explain to me how to set up a Discord, I will sit down with whoever needs to talk and help you set that Discord up. If other people have experience too, reach out to them. If you know they have a Discord, please use it. I mean, there's so much I can tell you about it, but it's better if you're more hands-on to see it. And yeah, I mean, if there's any other questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you for that. And yeah, I can put your info in the chat, and that's, you know, just another plug to, you know, fill out the form that you get texted to you in 10-15 minutes, and we'll be able to put you in touch with the right person that can help you learn about Telegram or Discord or any of the things people talk about. We got 7 people with their hands up. We're going to try to get to most all of you. When we go to Caleb next, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute with your question or comment. Oh.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Awesome. My name is Caleb Cobb. I work at Wendigo Logistics, not UPS. We are a third-party company for Kroger, essentially just like a mediator, so Kroger doesn't have to directly deal with us. I work here in Denver at a local 455. I don't really have a question, but I have just an example of, kind of what we've done at our warehouse. So we were actually coming off a 10-year contract that was from 2014 to 2024. About a year before, I noticed that nothing was really happening, and that was kind of worrying. I talked with the local, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna start doing stuff in the summer." And I didn't think that was enough time for us, so I started talking with my buddy Tyler Kondo and Kat, who is a steward at UPS, and they put me in contact with Willem and got me, in contact with TDU, obviously, and put me on the right direction of getting in contact with my members. We started with a survey just to gauge like where members were, what they wanted to see in this upcoming contract and what they thought about the current contract we had. We ended up getting about 70% of the members, which was about like 200 members, information, phone, email, best way to contact them, days off, position, all the stuff you need to know. And then, what they wanted to see economic wise, healthcare, pension, and then, the other things, safety, vacation days, and so on and so forth. After we collected that information, we brought it back to the members through kind of a network of people, that wanted to be involved, and have them pass out to the less active members, like they brought up in the bullseye. And through that, members, we were able to take that to the local meetings that they finally started doing, and the proposal meetings, and we were able to push the things that we wanted, that we knew members wanted, to our negotiation committee. Right now, we are continuing to do social events throughout the year. We're trying to do monthly things. And then that's with all TDU members, I should clarify. And then grocery workers, we've been meeting up twice a month. That's just what works for us. Mainly focusing on the shift that I'm on, but we're looking to spread across the building. That's all I have. But yeah, I just wanted to give some advice for the people who are not at UPS and maybe have smaller shops. The social events are huge, like Tyler brought up. Everyone is most likely a worker in very similar situations to yourself. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. Before we get to people whose hands raised, and we have a bunch, there's a few questions that are in the Q&A that might want to pitch to some of the panelists here. One, I'll just answer myself. Some folks have asked just about like kind of where you're allowed to have meetings. Good rule of thumb is, non-work areas on non-work times. So I think somebody asked if you can do it in a break room. Again, if it's a non-work area on a non-work time, you can have a meeting. I think that's why John was able to have his meeting in the building, because it was in a non-work area of the building and before work. We have another question here about Discord, but it's really about, I think a question for anyone on the panel. Someone asked, I'm worried that my driver is a little too old to like understand Discord. And sort of how do you sort of bring the union to, maybe older members who are less tech savvy? I don't know if anyone on the panel is interested in addressing that. I see Chuck,
Well,
you unmuted.
Yeah, I was gonna say I tried to mention it, and when I talked about it too, I think you have to assess if you're wanting to do any type of campaign, whether it's an educational or a contract campaign, or someone's running for office. You know, I think there was probably some questions as well, like, you know, what do we do if our local's unresponsive? Or this is all about building, you know, how do you start building? And I think it's really important to identify what are people already using. You know, if you have an older workforce that does the phone, you know, like figure out a conference call like what we're doing. You know, if you're not coming together you don't see each other every day, like think about the things that people are already using that you can utilize. Make it as easy for people to show up as possible, right? So use something that they're already using, so there's less of an excuse. You know, they don't have to download this app, or they don't have to drive across the city to, you know, go to this place they've never been to and they're nervous about. Like, figure out what works for your group, and then utilize something that they're already using. Make it as easy as possible for them to show up.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, I think I want to like reiterate, you know, nothing's like a one size fits all, you know, oh, I heard somebody use Discord, so I should use Discord. Like, you know, part of us thinking through what's the thing that people in your workplace are going to be able to do. And some work, like, you know, if Chuck tried to do a parking lot meeting at Catch, you know, that's the wrong tool for a place where people aren't all coming in at the same time and the parking lot's like 3 miles long or whatever. So, okay, we've got a bunch of hands up. We're gonna try to get to as many as we can. Gavin, I see your hand up. Why don't we go to your question or comment next? Try to unmute you. All right, Gavin, if you're there, you should be able to talk.
Yep, I'm here. I'm Gavin Jones. I'm a UPS package car driver and activist out of Local 92 in New Philadelphia, Ohio. I've been full-time at UPS for 4 years, and this past week we had our very first parking lot meeting that I'm aware of, at least. With the help of TDU and some other activists from other barns, we organized the meeting to inform our full-time drivers of their 9-5 rights. We've had several drivers with 3, 4, 5, even 6 grievances in on 9-5 violations. The turnout was great. We had a little over 20 drivers show up. There were a lot of questions about when do I get my quadruple time pay, how to get the elevated meeting, how to file a proper grievance. But it was funny now that UPS, you know, they flipped the switch on 9-5, and now they're harassing drivers to keep as many people under. We're planning our next talk or our next parking lot meeting about dealing with that harassment from management, excessive observations, and methods rides, and what to do if you notice management following you or having a supervisor on car with you. And to follow up on something John said earlier about checking the weather, unfortunately, last week was a cold week in Ohio, so it was a cold, windy day. Yeah, but we still had a great turnout, and everyone appreciated the coffee and donuts.
Awesome. Thanks, Gavin, and congrats on having your first meeting. Yeah, I think a lot of people in the chat asked too, you know, how do you operate when you're not necessarily getting the backing from your local? And so Tyler, I see you have your hands up wanting to answer this. So why don't you go ahead and answer?
Yeah, I think Willem touched on this at the beginning of the call, which is a big part of our process is enacting the power on the shop floor, right? Business agents and stewards are influential on our shop floor, but I have found that I am so much more effective with these members because I do know them. I know their family. I know their background. I know what they did on the weekend. And I have found that most stewards or business agents don't know any of their members. They would love to just spout some direction from the top and have everyone jump in line. And I think it's obvious to you that that's not effective either, right? So I would definitely say continue to reach out to TDU. Let's see if we can get some other activists in your area to work with you and talk about some effective, whether it be a parking lot meeting or a social event that we can kind of cross collaborate on to get some activity going on your shop floor.
Thanks, Tyler. And yeah, I think if there's one takeaway from this for everyone, it's you don't need to wait, for your business agent or for your local to, invite you to the union meeting or come to do a shop visit. Like empowered members can do all types of things that you've heard from people here today to educate their coworkers and involve them in the union. We're going to take a couple more and then wrap up. So we're not going to get to everyone whose hand is raised, but I see Dakota Hanson. If you want to unmute, ask your question or comment. Oh, there we go.
I just wanted to, I know I'm not Dakota.
Oh, hold on, Dave. Let Dakota go first, and then I'll go to you.
I'm Dakota from local 983 out of Idaho. I'm an RPCD, but with drivers stating like there's more harassment coming based off the 9.5 violations, if they're observing you, if you got lunchtime or break time, take it when you notice they're observing you.
Okay.
And that's all I gotta say.
All right, thanks. Dave, since you're here, why don't you ask your question or give your comment?
So I just wanted to add that to the previous speaker, that if you got to build that core out first before you start trying to engage everyone. So if you get 5-6 people that are on the same page, which is what we're talking about, building that circle out, you get 5-6 people that are on the same page. It's a lot easier than doing it by yourself. So, and don't feel alone. Contact TDU. This is why we have these things. We have the tools. We have, it's years and years and years of experience organizing. But start with that core group and make that core group diversified. Okay. If there's a leader that you notice in one area, maybe they're Spanish speaking, or they bowl together or whatever. Find a leader in that group, bring them into your core, and then use TDU's tools to build out that circle. Thanks.
Awesome. And that, I think, is a perfect way to close out this webinar. So thank you all for joining. Thanks everyone who gave comments. Sorry for a few people we weren't able to get to, but we're running a little overtime. Again, you should be getting a text fairly soon with a form to fill out, so we can get in contact with you or put you in touch with some of the speakers on this webinar, to help you, set up group chats or hold parking lot meetings or do some of the things you heard today. So definitely look out for that form, fill it out so we can get in contact, and look out for a link to join TDU and join today. So again, thank you all for joining. Thanks for all the panelists, and have a good rest of your day.